What's going on, guys? Over here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 career mode, episode number 59 today for the Brazilian Grand Prix in Season 3. This is the second last round of this season, of course. If you did miss the last one, episode number 58 at the Mexican Grand Prix, be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, as it was a very crucial race, really, in many regards, of course, for the championship being the main one. I guess this is enough time for spoilers, obviously. We got second place there, really solid, and with Sebastian Vettel falling away with seemingly either issues or just bottling it really at Mexico, fell out the points to P11 then in that race, and it means going into these last two rounds we're ahead by 15 points, so we are looking very strong with only these two rounds to go. But Brazil and Abu Dhabi, obviously in the past in real life Formula 1, some crazy things have happened at Abu Dhabi and Brazil respectively, so we can't rest really. The pressure's still on, but I guess a lot less pressure than it would have been if we were still behind in the championship. And now it's a case of, like I mentioned at Mexico, maybe just keeping it calm and doing a kind of Alan Prost kind of method for these last two rounds, you know, playing it safe, you know, just doing the minimum we need to do. We know that Vettel will be the one that has to beat us now in these last two rounds, so we can afford to maybe be behind him potentially in the race even. But of course, you guys know me, I'll try my hardest to still beat him on track if we can, and we'll be fighting hard to drag this Renault car up as we have done the last two seasons. So we go ahead into qualifying then. Q1, all sunny skies compared to that practice session you saw there briefly, overcast conditions. Still trying to get the resource points, but I'm not really focusing too much on getting the maximum resource points now, I'll be honest, because we're coming to the end of the season. I'm not really going to be focusing on upgrades, because with only two rounds left, there's no real point in time, and there's also the possibility we may not even be here in this team for next season, depending on how the championship and these last two rounds go. But we get held up here on our first Q1 lap time, and actually we end up getting held up on our second lap time as well. We got held up by McLaren there, it was, and then we go on our second flying lap, and for the first sector I thought I was going to get clean air, but then you can just see clearly Verline comes just out of the pit lane just as I'm about to go down that straight into sector 2, so climbing up the hill, having to make a move down the inside of this Sauber. Thankfully though, Verline didn't hold us up as much as Van Dorn, so we do set a good enough lap time to get us up into Q2. You can see Hulkenberg there, we're actually not too far off, so to be fair to say we got that much traffic on that second run as well, it definitely would have affected us having Verline there, the dirty air, especially up the hill. That's pretty okay for us, I would say, in Q1, and obviously the task is just to get into Q2, and so here we are in Q2, and we're on a set of soft tyres. So again, like we did at Mexico, and like we have done so many times so far this season, going on that second set of softest tyre. The softest obviously available is the super softs, and the hardest being the medium tyres. So we're on the soft tyres, come across the line, and I thought it was a pretty okay lap time, but I wasn't sure it was going to be anything special. You can see we do make it into Q3, actually quite a substantial gap in terms of time difference between P10 and P11 there, Romain Grosjean and the Haas. So actually we're pretty safe in terms of, it doesn't look like it on the timesheet in terms of positions, but in terms of the actual time we had to Grosjean, it would have been quite a miracle for Grosjean to gain that much time on another set of super soft tyres. So actually in the end it was okay for us, and good that we got through to Q3, so we can now open ourselves up for a bit of a different strategy in the race. And for sure Brazil is going to be one of those races where we do need that kind of difference in our opening strategy, because around here on this game at Brazil, I definitely am not as strong as I was on previous F1 games around this circuit. The first two turns are still a nightmare for me personally to navigate compared to the AI. They gain so much time on me through there, and I have to gain it back in sector 2 and sector 3 generally, so it's going to be a bit tricky one. So we're going to need that alternative strategy, I think, to really make up the places. So anyway, we come across the line then, we set 2 lap times in Q3 then. My second flying lap ends up being a lot better, a lot faster than it was in Q2, obviously on a new set of super soft tyres. But everyone, you can see in terms of the lap times, really improved. The top guys really pushing into the 107s when they're only in the 108s in Q2. So obviously turning up the wick, probably going, as I've said, I think probably the AI only run rich mix in Q2 and probably go to full max, at least the top teams in Q3, because they gain so much time in this Q3 session, as well as my teammate then as well, who does a fabulous job to be in P5 ahead of Sergio Perez. But both myself and Nico and Perez out-qualify some higher guys there. So obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the grid penalties, so we could be a little bit further up, as well as Nico as well. But again, it looks like Hulkenberg's looking pretty damn strong, which is going to be good for us, obviously. At Mexico, he really helped us out by overtaking Sebastian towards the end of the race. So let's see, but it looks like from the animations there, the two Ferraris are quite near to the front, so we may have some overtaking to do in this race if we do want to finish ahead of Sebastian Vettel. But either way, as I mentioned, anything can happen here in these last two rounds, but we're ahead in the championship. So as I said, time to keep our heads cool, and let's just go out and have a good race. So let's go go to the full grid and then see how this race goes.
With that then, let's run through the grid order. Kimi Raikkonen starts today from pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Hamilton, Nico Hülkenberg, and Perez, Renault, Ricciardo, Ocon, and Roman Grosjean, Magnussen, Massa, Max Verstappen, and Stroll, Van Dorn, Alonso, Carlos Sainz, and Pascal Wehrlein. Kvyat and Marcus Ericsson rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So unfortunately for us, normal order is resumed, really. No grid penalties to actually talk about. So we're still in P7, Perez is there in P6, and Hülkenberg is right ahead of me on the grid in P5. Both Ferrari cars obviously locking out the front row. Kimi, though, thankfully is the one on pole position, and Vettel's in second. I say that because generally, looking from the past races in this career mode, you got to say that Raikkonen's AI, once he's in clean air and he's able to attack, he really is very, very fast. For some reason, his AI is just a bit more consistent than Sebastian's in this game. So hopefully that's good for us, that Vettel may not get the win. If he does get those 25 points, we're going to have to really do some work to get up the order to reduce that deficit to us. Obviously, we've only got 15, so if he gets 25, we need to get at least 10 points there to stop any kind of major gains. But on the strategy terms, we're starting on those soft tyres, filling up on fuel, potentially doing a 2-stop, whereas others may be trying a 3-stop. So let's just see how it goes. So we go to the second last round of the season, then to 5 red lights here in Sao Paulo for the Brazilian Grand Prix, and it's underway, and it is a pretty mediocre start for us on the softer tyres, on the harder tyres, compared to the guys around us on super soft. Ricciardo down my inside, it's 3 wide between Hülkenberg and Hamilton there, and Perez goes around the outside of Hamilton into turn 2, as Hamilton's really had a poor start, myself as included as well, as Ricciardo is able to nip down our inside, so we have to try and re-overtake the Australian as we go down to the next corner. It's Kimi Raikkonen leading the way, Sebastian Vettel second place, Bottas in third. We're down the inside of Ricciardo though, we go side by side on the exit of this left hand as we go towards the end of sector 1, and we'll just about squeeze out the Australian. You can see he has to tuck in behind there on the proximity arrow, where it's all happening up ahead as Hülkenberg tries to maybe nip it down the inside of Perez up the hill. Not quite, but it looks like Perez has indeed been defended quite well off by Hamilton there, who got a really poor start. Hamilton was in between my teammate and Perez going to turn 1, so that was a really shocking start from our fellow Brit. But as we climb up the hill then on towards lap 2, it's going to be Bottas the one. The other Mercedes chasing down Sebastian Vettel and looking a lot stronger than his counterpart there. Bottas in the slipstream of the Ferrari, of course, no DRS activated quite yet, but as across the line, he's got plenty of slipstream there in that silver arrow. Around the outside he goes into turn 1, and Sebastian, after trying to defend to the inside, will turn to the outside for the next corner, and Bottas may squeeze him out. Not quite there. They go side by side, toe to toe, and Bottas for now has to hang back in P3. That's allowed Hamilton to close up quite a bit there, so the two Mercedes maybe both looking to maybe overtake the German, as Bottas again tries it around the outside of the next corner. A bit of a lock-up from Sebastian that forces him a little bit wide, but it's no use. The Finn has it, and it's a Finn 1-2 for Raikkonen in P1, Bottas P2, and we move immediately to the next lap. Again, up the hill. Looks like Sebastian's getting a really poor exit up that hill off that final few corners, as now Hamilton's down the inside of him. Vettel will try his hardest to defend to the inside for turn 2. Bit of contacts made there as Hamilton kind of jockeys to a position, gets the elbows out a little, and as they go through the curve on the left, Hamilton just streaks ahead. DRS open now onto lap 3, and the same can be said of Sergio Perez and my teammate Nico Hülkenberg now, who both find themselves staring at the back of that red Ferrari car now, and we're not too far behind. So at this rate, Sebastian we may be seeing Sebastian right ahead of us then as we move now into lap 5, and we've got a lapped car there locking up Ericsson, and he holds up Hülkenberg somewhat, so we've gained quite a bit into Rich Mix to maybe try and close up. We've got DRS now for the first time in this race on our teammate Hülkenberg. He's been doing a fantastic job to just keep at the back of Sergio Perez. We set the fastest first sector of the Grand Prix so far, so that bodes well for us, but you can see that into the next turn, losing a bit of pace, and you're about to see in sector 2, at the moment, I don't know what it is, heavier fuel, maybe the difference between the soft and super soft tyres on heavier fuel, but I'm just unable to really keep that gap to Hülkenberg, struggling and really having to wrestle the car and breaking as late as I dare to keep on the back of Hülkenberg. And at this stage of the Grand Prix, it's been a pretty, standstill one for me here in P7. We've been in P7 since the opening lap once we re-overtook Ricciardo, and the action's all been happening in front of us, just unable to really make any kind of headway on Hülkenberg, whereas now we can see now quite early on into the race, Vettel coming to the pit lane now for his first pit stop. He's on super soft tyres, obviously. The Ferrari car, though, in the past we've seen has been pretty good in its tyres, so surprised that Vettel's come in so early, but that may kind of allude that he may be trying an aggressive 3-stop, as it's only lap 7 as we now go on to lap 8. That is indeed a very early pit stop, whereas we may be going to at least lap 12 if we go to our default strategy. And the same can be said for Hulkenberg and Perez up ahead. I think the default strategy must be around lap 9-ish. For the first pit stop, but we've got DRS once again of Hulkenberg, so we're just about within 1 second, but you can clearly see Hulkenberg is that much closer to Perez than I am to either of them there, and we're kind of in no man's land as behind us Ocon was able to overtake Ricciardo then, so we do move on to lap 9, so I call that perfectly then, our teammates into the pit. We're up into now what will be P4 onto the beginning of lap 10, locking up quite badly and really sliding around in the first few turns. You saw that I briefly brought up my heads-up display on the right-hand side, showing the tyre wear. Now, our tyres are wearing a little bit. They're not too bad, but the feeling is a lot worse than they actually are percentage-wise. So I need to try and buckle down a little bit and get kind of used to this car and kind of wrestle it out of whatever kind of demons it's having at the moment, because at the moment the car is not feeling too great. It's kind of feeling like a box on wheels, I'm not going to lie. So we move on to lap 12 then. Now the tyre wear has really picked up, 52% on the left rear. That's still not that bad in terms of percentage, and we're in P1 now, and Verstappen is in P2, Raikkonen in P3. At this stage of the Grand Prix now, I'm starting to think about potentially moving to a very audacious one-stop that includes the medium tyre. But as we move on to lap 13, it's Ocon there, stranded on the left-hand side, yellow flags there for him. I was wondering what on earth, what car that was, and it was Ocon, and I literally just mentioned him, he was behind us, he overtook Ricciardo quite well, and he was there in P8, so I don't know what on earth has happened to him, so we'll look at a replay here and find out what went on. And it's actually going to turn out to be a very odd incident. If you take a look at his left front tyre very closely on the exit of the pit lane, literally the moment his tyre crosses the white line to go back onto the track, his tyre pops then. So I don't know if that was a glitch or if there was just a bit of debris that hasn't been picked up on the replay camera there, but Ocon with an immediate left front puncher, which is so unlucky, like straight out the pits on fresh tyres, you get the puncher there, and as I said, he just overtaken Ricciardo, so really unfortunate stuff for him. But anyway, here we are in P1 then. Max Verstappen is the one in P2, then Kimi Raikkonen in P3. You can see the gap is pretty okay to Verstappen there, so we're just going as long as we can now on lap 14 to 15, just trying to stretch these tyres. Behind then, Sebastian Vettel is behind both Mercedes cars, then followed by Sergio Perez and Nico Hulkenberg, not too far behind then, and once again you can see Hulkenberg was right on the back of Perez. But as we move through the laps then, on towards lap 16 as we cross the line, Raikkonen eventually does catch up to us. Verstappen has made his pit stop, so Raikkonen was in P2, but now he's managed to barge his way past into turn 2 there. A little bit of contact was made going to the brake zone of turn 1, and that just offset my car somewhat, but we have got a much better exit off turn 2 actually, because we got a tighter line, straighten up the car a lot faster. So with DRS, we're trying our best to hang it round the outside to re-overtake him as we go into sector 2. It's no use though on the outside. Raikkonen has much better downforce. We're unable to just keep the car around the outside. We get on the curbing somewhat, and we're having to kind of settle for P2 then and tuck in behind, and you can see just going up that hill, understeering a little bit to the left, having to shimmy a little bit on the front of the car as we catch the front end going a little bit. So dirty air kicking in quite a bit. As we move on to lap 17 then, 71% worn on my left rear tyre. I think 77 on the right rear tyre. So you can see I make the call now to come in on lap 17, but we've done some absolute work and a half to take these soft tyres to lap 17. So the tyre wear reduction that we got last episode probably helping quite a bit. So right on cue, as Vettel closed up to us at the end of that lap, we come into the pit lane now. As I mentioned, we are actually converting this to quite an audacious one-stop. Probably not a one-stop we could probably manage if it weren't for the tyre wear upgrade we did last time in last episode of the Mexican Grand Prix. So onto the mediums now, and we are going to the end of this Grand Prix. So quite some way to go on the mediums, but we've already gone so long on the soft tyres, so actually really it's not going to be too much of a challenge to go to the end on mediums. It's just a case of what the pace is going to be like on these white wall tyres versus what's looking like a lot of people going on a very aggressive 3-stop with super soft tyres, and I think maybe the likes of Verstappen and Hulkenberg, my teammate, doing a 2-stop. Speaking of Hulkenberg then, he finally eventually has the speed to go round the outside of Perez. He's been right behind the Mexican the entire race long. Obviously Perez doing a great job so far, obviously probably buoyed off that performance and that win at the Mexican Grand Prix last episode, but Hulkenberg finally looks like he's going to get fed up with being behind the Force India man. He's going to try and make the move to the outside as they enter sector 2. Then Hulkenberg manages to get the speed. Perez will come back somewhat on the left, but it looks like Hulkenberg will just about have enough as they go towards the hill. He'll have the inside line. He'll be able to surely squeeze Perez out. Yes, he does, and that's fantastic work. Great stuff, Nico, and he's up the order then, and he's looking very strong. I think he's looking a lot stronger than me this race, I've got to admit. I think he's gonna have a very good chance of finishing ahead of us. But anyways, we swing through the left-hander, trying to catch the Haas cars there as they line astern, but look on the left-hand side, Sebastian Vettel is now coming out of the pit lane, so this is very crucial crucial for our race to get ahead of our rival here. Down the inside, we'll go very late on the brakes, locking up on the left front tire. Vettel on cold super softs, unable to really defend too much on the kind of mid part of the apex. He did get initially a better exit, but then we're able to get through. We kind of weave around a little bit to get the turn in up the hill, and we are ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Of course, though, I think Vettel may be making one more pit stop in this Grand Prix, so maybe it won't matter too much that we got ahead of him. Maybe it wasn't so crucial, but at the time, I just didn't really know what tyres he was going to be on, what strategy he was going to pull, so at the time, I just dived down the inside, went as late as I could, locked up there, but we made it work. And then on the next lap, Sergio Perez comes out the pit lane, and he's ahead of Sebastian Vettel as well. So that's great to see one car in between us. So that's going to be one more car that Vettel has to deal with this afternoon. And good to see we've actually somehow managed to be ahead of Perez now, as both those guys on a bit of an alternative strategy compared to us. We now move on to lap 23, so 13 laps to go. And Perez trying to spoil the party somewhat round the outside. He's on soft tyres compared to Vettel super soft, so that kind of alludes that Vettel is definitely on a more aggressive three-stop strategy potentially. So on the exit of turn 2 down the straight, we've got DRS on Perez. We actually entered that DRS detection point behind the Mexican, so we go on the left-hand side. We'll move to the racing line to overtake Perez, but Vettel sends it down the inside of both of us, and he's made the double overtake work. So Vettel really on a charge there, so opportunistic. I moved back to the racing line to just take the normal racing line, because I completely cleared Perez in that overtake because I got so much overspeed on him, but I just didn't see Vettel coming. I don't think Perez did either, and so that's one very determined Sebastian Vettel trying to fight as hard as he can to claw back points in the championship. So he's once again ahead of us, but as I mentioned, he's also on an alternative strategy, probably one more stop than us, so that's probably also why he was making such a fuss to get past us, because he has to make one more pit stop and will probably come back behind us now later in this race. Meanwhile, on to lap 25, Perez has once again overtaken us, and this time, unfortunately, you can see we've not got the same exit as we did on the previous attempt, but we do have DRS in the slipstream, and we will try a very late lunge to try and get the place back. Perez giving us the room on the outside. We go wayward, opposite lock, and somehow wrestle the car through to go toe-to-toe with Perez. Our right front tyre so close to that side pod of his, with the BWT sponsoring as we go to the outside of the hill. He squeezes out somewhat, a little bit of a tap there, a little bit rude from Perez, and we have to go on the curbing a little bit to keep that throttle in, basically, and keep the move in, and still trying to battle him, getting the nose in, kind of pinching it in, but then kind of darting out the last minute. But then down the inside, locking up on the right front, Perez somehow giving us the room, and on the outside then, on the right-hander, we're full flat out, don't you dare lift off on the outside there, on the curbing somewhat, and then we brake a little bit earlier, get the switchback move working a little bit, not complete switchback, but just enough to straighten up the car a lot faster than Perez did, and you can clearly see up the hill, gaining that time in the slipstream. Move to the left now, Rich Mix, open it up, and open up the DRS, and Perez didn't really see us coming on the left-hand side, because he almost squeezed us in towards the wall there. That would have been a little bit nasty, but we are back indeed up into P5 now. Vettel is still the car up ahead, but you can see in the mini-map there, he's got such a gap now to us, so he really bolted on those super softs, so really determined to try and finish ahead of us this afternoon. Now we move on to lap 28 then. We've got a McLaren going slowly, so he'll get blue flags. I've tried to tactically kind of weave around him to maybe slow down the cars that are behind me, which is now not Perez, but it's both Mercedes cars. So both Mercedes have made an extra pit stop as well as Vettel has, and so we're up into P4, but they had to overtake Perez, and they have done. They're both going to have DRS, so we're going to be a little bit vulnerable here. A bit of a sitting duck as Hamilton goes to the left, and Bottas on the right-hand side as well, and they go round the outside either side of me. That is a fantastic view. I mean, albeit getting overtaken, but that is still a fantastic view to see two cars going around the outside like that either side of me. And up the hill, Bottas and Hamilton go toe-to-toe, and so much so that Hamilton gets squeezed out, gets dirty air, and shoved off with some room from his teammate Bottas. So good stuff for us to actually re-overtake Hamilton then. So kind of watched that little bit of popcorn as they kind of went toe-to-toe up the hill. I was just kind of waiting for hopefully maybe a crash, but alas, only just one position gained on Hamilton. Better than nothing, I guess, and we're back up into P5. But of course, not really, I'm not desperately trying to stay ahead of them, of course, if we're just trying to keep it clean, because remember, we are ahead by 15 points. I don't necessarily need to be risking my front wing or anything like that. So if I can make a move on Hamilton like that instead of trying to defend from both of them into that corner at the end of that straight, much better for us. And now we move on to lap 34 with 4 laps to go. Vettel has managed to overtake us into the turn 2 corner, and now we're going to try and come back at him. We're right up his gearbox now, DRS open, and we're down the straight on the left-hand side to make it 3 wide. In fact, as Hamilton's on the right, and we're 3 wide of Renault, the Ferrari, Mercedes. We made contact though with Vettel. We're into a half spin. We're just about to control that. It looked like my left front got caught on Vettel's rear left tyre, and so that could have been a lot nasty. That you just never know. That could have been a complete spin out and me out of this Grand Prix potentially. As now Hamilton makes contact with Vettel. Vettel, so Vettel's really getting quite aggressive with everyone this afternoon. A bit of contact with Hamilton there, almost sent Hamilton into a bit of a half spin, and we had to double lock up to save that. And so alas, it's only going to be P7 for us. I'm unable to keep up with Hamilton and Vettel after they overtake me, and so we come through P7. I believe Vettel in the end comes home for P5. So all in all, still a pretty okay Grand Prix for us. Obviously, you know, it's not the best position, but to be honest, I couldn't care any less. We're still going to be ahead of Vettel in the championship. That is all that matters to me. I am fully playing this like Prost. I don't care about my finishing position. As long as we finish ahead in the championship, that is all that matters. But let's celebrate the fact that Nico Hülkenberg has got second place here. Go on, son. Hülkenberg in second place. I said it before. This entire race, it looks like he's been so much more comfortable around this circuit and so much better than me through that entire race. So, and the rewards are just second place there, ahead of Verstappen, and Raikkonen's the one that wins. So, I think one of you commented this below, or a few of you guys said this last time out at the Mexican Grand Prix, that what if Raikkonen hadn't got those string of 5 bad luck races at the beginning of the season? He could have been well in this championship. I would have been having to fight off 2 Ferraris, let alone 1, because you can see in the championship, obviously still ahead of Vettel by now 11 points, but Raikkonen has closed right up to only 18 points behind us. So, you know, you count out, you know, just one of those DNFs that Raikkonen got, you count that out, and he could have been right up there for the championship hunt. So, unfortunate, therefore, of course, what is the reigning world champion from Season 2. Obviously, Hamilton won Season 1, Raikkonen Season 2, and at the moment, we're looking good for Season 3, but we've got one more round to go now, guys. The next episode number 60, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I hope you guys are. And if you have enjoyed this one, though, nonetheless, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. But I hope you guys are looking forward to that last episode now of this season. Episode number 60. It's going to be a big one. We could wrap up the World Drivers' Championship in Renault next episode. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Till next time, goodbye.